right. What's up, squad? Welcome back for the love of the game, acquiring and operating Micro SaaS. You've got Kale here. I'm riding Dolo today, given that we have a Musings cut today from issue 19. And I guess 'tis the season as 2023 kind of comes to a head, the long tail. I figured I would do a roundup. And I guess in that spirit, we've got 12 pieces of content that hit me hardest in 2023. So very, very excited to share this. This was like I would say kind of a high content consumption year, trying to level up in a lot of areas and doing so with as much intention as possible. So I think it's a useful list, really, no matter who you are, but especially for those playing the Micro SaaS game. Hopefully there's some club bangers in here. So let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen real quick. All right, beautiful. So just a quick recap on issue 19, because this is the last cut. We've had a deal teardown to kick things off where we looked at an off-market deal, which was kind of a new thing for us. And we took a look at an established SaaS for countertop fabricators, very much kind of well nestled in the lower middle market, or the traditional definition of lower middle market. As an operating concept, we moved on to the flavors of a buyout investment thesis. So again, a little change of flavor there, away from kind of operating concepts that are typically catered towards SaaS operators, founders, growth leaders, engineers, etc. And then we did an OKR teardown where we looked at executing a UGC tactical experiment to try and inform our longer term strategy. So we had webinars up and rolling. We were able to measure the results there, and we want to compare and contrast those results against a different tactic to determine how we move forward. So that's a quick recap. Let's jump in. So 12x pieces of content. A quick disclaimer, there's not much rhyme or reason to the list. Like, it's not in descending order of priority or anything like that. I kind of just grabbed them. I went through my red list. I keep a Notion table, and then I jumped into Kindle as well, which I guess kind of side note, Readwise is an app that kind of plays nice with Kindle, where if you highlight a section in Kindle, Readwise will serve you up those highlights over time. And it's been an absolute game changer. So it's maybe been the tipping point that's pulled me towards digital books only. Obviously, for the dense stuff that's a little bit more textbook oriented, I do appreciate a physical book, because you can kind of flip back and forth. You can put sticky notes in there. You can refer to the table contents anytime you wish, etc. But check it out if you haven't. Readwise is the shit. All right, cool. So this first book, T2D3, and dear God, I struggle to pull this one up, or to speak this one. Just I'm like TD3, Terminator 2. I don't know, but the book is outstanding. So it's written by a gentleman who kind of cut his teeth at Microsoft, scaling their Office suite to SMB. And then he went on to form I guess you could call it like a fractional CMO agency. But this book is absolutely outstanding. So I kind of grew up on Winning by Design and the SaaS sales methodology and others. So those are definitely foundational. And the book is definitely, I guess, pitched towards startups. And I guess the title is kind of an homage to double growth or triple growth in year 1, year 2, and then double growth in year 3, 4, and 5, which has typically been the recipe for venture scale, is achieving kind of those growth rates on a 5-year term. So that's where the wonky title comes from. And I guess kind of ironic that, for a book written by a marketer, it's a little tough to spit back, which isn't great for word of mouth. But anywho, so this book is very thoughtfully sequenced, and it covers really the entire gambit. So whether you're thinking about how to back into ideal customer profile creation, and it gets really thoughtful. It's not just firmographics. It thinks about tech maturity curves, stuff like that. And then obviously that foots right into product marketing positioning. So a lot of the stuff that we did on pricing with product feature matrix and some other frameworks was basically directly inspired from that book. Lastly, it also covers content, SEO, acquisition strategies. I mean, the list really goes on, and you can kind of pick and choose what you want to dive into. But I found it to be a really nice refresher of like a cohesive, this is what a modern marketing toolkit looks like. And these are the things that perhaps I'd maybe forgotten a little bit or had gotten dusty over the years. And I guess final thought here is for the technical founders. This is really probably the only resource you need when you're stepping into a meeting with a marketing human. So I would encourage it for that audience as well, although that stuff might typically not be up your alley. So I guess kind of as an extension, the pricing roadmap, which is totally catered towards B2B SaaS. And I found this to be one of the most, I guess, pointed and granular, and I guess also actionable, because I think so many things, like you end up with so many frameworks and so many thoughts and so many concepts. You're just like, Jesus, what I still don't know how we're going to price this thing. So I found the pricing roadmap to be a very thoughtful, again, kind of sequence of content that you can grab actual frameworks from and in a way frameworks and away you go. So highly recommend this for those that want to dive deeper into the pricing piece, and pricing and monetization as like its own kind of subject matter. All right, then on to the messy marketplace. So now we're kind of switching gears towards the acquisition side of what we do. And this is by Brent Sanders, or no, I'm sorry, what's his name? That's a personal friend. Brent, oh, what's his name? Brent Bashore, my bad. Brent Bashore, who's the founder of Permanent Equity, and he's considered like an OG of permanent capital. So his story is amazing. And if you haven't read HBR's Buying a Small Business, that's a very, very good book just to kind of learn the fundamentals. And then there's Buy Then Build, which is a little bit of an extension of that, written from a practitioner's perspective. But both of them are from the buy side. What's interesting, right, is that Brent, the author, is also from the buy side, but the book was really intended for the sells. So I found it to be kind of an interesting reframe of like, hey, I'd studied so much of what's going through your mind on the buy side, how to execute due diligence, red flags, gotchas, etc. And so it was good, I think, empathy, if nothing else, to kind of consider stuff from the seller's mindset. So highly recommend that, if nothing else, then just to kind of round out your understanding and bring a little bit more empathy to the table when you're participating in those acquisition conversations. All right, on to buy back your time. So this is Dan Martell, and he's the founder of SaaS Academy, which is basically a program for, I guess, CEO founders for the most part. And essentially it's just playbooks, frameworks. It draws a lot of inspiration from the Entrepreneur Operating System, EOS. But his whole kind of thought process is proven tactics that are operationalized via playbooks. And so I guess for his first book, he kind of changed the context to that of like a founder CEO. So I think that's probably the audience for this book. But I found it to be one of the more modern and simplified versions of like really good management and productivity techniques. For instance, like the 1-3-1 framework, which is something I kind of used subconsciously for a long time, but it's like, if you like, 1, define the issue or the opportunity. 3, suggest 3 ways to navigate the opportunity or overcome the challenge. And 1, make a recommendation, and then I guess stand by it and articulate why that is your recommendation. So that really accelerates a lot of internal conversations where sometimes people are like, hey, I realize we have a problem. It's like, great. Like, do you have any thoughts on how we move forward? And then, okay, of those thoughts, do you have a favorite? So it'll really truncate and speed up those types of conversations. So the book is just riddled with stuff like this. I also included a link, and God bless him, Dan. I mean, he knows how people like us think. He included a link to a Dropbox file that's just the frameworks from the book. So if you want to skip the fluff, but the fluff adds a lot of useful context. I kind of use them side by side, but it allowed me to get through the book much, much faster. It was kind of like a 2-day, just smash it. But a very, very good one for those looking to level up on the productivity or the management front. All right, so we're going to switch gears a little bit. And mental models have had, like, I guess the concept of mental models, and Charlie Munger, may he rest in peace. He was kind of a big advocate that knowledge can't exist. And Elon Musk has said kind of the same thing, that knowledge is kind of a semantic tree where you have a trunk that is kind of the foundation of your knowledge. And then you have branches, which are extensions, and then you have leaves. And if you try to learn a leaf, so to speak, that isn't attached to a branch that attaches to the trunk, your mind can't really organize it. So there's nothing for that knowledge to stick to necessarily. And so Charlie Munger said that, the best thinkers, their mind kind of works like a lattice work of very intentional mental models. So I totally subscribe to that. Mental models have become hugely useful for me, where just to kind of frame even a conversation is like, okay, this is what's going on. Like, what mental models do I have at my disposal? And that we're big advocates of objective frameworks. So it's accelerated my thinking. I think it's normalized my thinking regardless of my emotional state, and can't recommend it enough. So Farnham Street, like, their whole mission statement is, or I mean, the opening page on the book is, the quality of your thinking depends on the models in your head. So I totally subscribe to that. And I think they've done an outstanding job, selecting the top 10 mental models that are also like starting with general thinking concepts. And then they move on to math and statistics. And then they have another one on physics, biology, and chemistry. So the books are absolutely lit. Farnham Street is just doing cool shit. So I follow them on social. They've got an interesting email newsletter. Highly recommend it. I guess final thought a little bit, I guess, as we head into the seasons, the holiday season, these books make for excellent gifts. They're just beautifully published, and they're really universally applicable. So for any of the thinkers in your world, I'd throw this on their gift list. All right, so now changing gears to a podcast. So man, Hormozi is absolutely exploding right now. Alex Hormozi and his podcast, The Game, is pretty exceptional. And So, you hate to follow the trends here. So there may be a little bit of that happening, but I just find Alex to be like a very rare blend. Like he brings a lot of philosophy and kind of stoic underpinnings to conversations. He's super vulnerable about like the hardest he's gotten hit and the biggest failures and what he learned from it. And he's absolutely hell bent on repeatability and operationalizing stuff and staying objective, removing subjectivity, normalizing for emotion, et cetera. So it's everything that he says really is like, I guess, the gospel that I subscribe to. So it was right up my alley. And I think what's interesting is that he, like us, is really intent on building in public. And like, I think like the opening of his podcast is like, I wish Bezos and Musk had documented their journeys because it would have given a playbook to people like me. So I think that's what he's trying to do. And much the same way that that's what we're trying to do is kind of shine a light and articulate a path that is not quite as conventional. So it's like, hey, you can go work at a high risk startup and kind of eat peanut butter and, huge chance of failure. You can go work at a corporate and maybe not be inspired or kind of engaged in your work. Or you can go kind of be a chess piece for an institutional sponsor, like a private equity or a venture fund. Or you can kind of do things on your own terms, I guess, if the circumstances are such where you can acquire businesses with your people and kind of do things the way that you'd like to do. So it's a little bit of I guess, my bias obviously is at play here, but it's a way to achieve financial freedom. And I guess kind of, in my view, a blend of the best of all worlds. But anywho, so Hormozi's building in public, and he's using his content as like an engagement mechanism or a magnet to attract deal flow. So he's trying to give away the most of his secret sauce. He's also written 2 books, $100 million offers and $100 million leads. He claims he put about 200 hours into each book. I mean, it's phenomenal. And you can tell, simplicity is mastery, that he just ruthlessly tried to hack away the noise. And so again, very actionable, just dope stuff. And man, his output is extraordinary too. It's just like podcasts, shorts, newsletter, boom, boom, boom. So, you can go as deep as you want on any topic really. And Hormozi will kind of meet you at the level of detail that you want to be at. So highly recommend. All right, staying in the podcast vein. So All In, man, with Chamath, Jason Sachs, and Friedberg. I'd be shocked if this is a new one for most of you. But this is like, I think, getting the episode of All In. Like I usually start my weeks in the gym with All In, and I just love it. I mean, I guess the disclaimer here is that it trends a little like billionaire-y. So like there's some dialogue where you're just like, Jesus, like this is hard to relate to, but you got to love them for it, and they've earned it. They're all self-made. But the perspective that they bring to the table is very nuanced, and I think they complement each other real well. So Chamath was one of the kind of ground floor, and kind of like the godfather of growth as we see it today. But he was on the ground floor of Facebook. Jason is the world's greatest moderator, but he's super active. He started as an angel, and now he runs a big kind of seed fund. Sachs was PayPal Mafia. He runs Craft Ventures, which is, I guess, kind of a PLG-oriented B2B SaaS fund. Huge fan of Sachs. And he brings a ton of political expertise and point of view to the equation. And then Friedberg, who might be my favorite, honestly, he's just so objective. He too employs a wide range of mental models, and he kind of discloses which one he's using in any moment. So you can learn a lot about kind of how he thinks through things, but he's the science guy. And so anyway, all 4 of them come together. It's how I prefer to get my news, frankly. So it keeps you current on what's happening in the world. It brings kind of non-filtered points of view. Like it's not ad supported, it's not the kind of stuff that you're getting on cable news, et cetera. And it's very sharp. So, I mean, just imagine that like you're a fly on a wall with 4 billionaires, playing poker. And I think that's kind of the construct of the podcast anyway, but just to put it very bluntly, that's what's happening. So anyway, highly recommend. If you listen to one podcast a week, I would recommend that be it. All right, now moving on to an email newsletter. So Scott Galloway, what a character. So I took his brand strategy course at NYU Stern, and that's when I kind of first got exposure to him. And I quickly kind of fell in line as a Galloway disciple. He's he's an interesting dude. He's, again, self-made. He started a luxury brand consulting firm, which he sold, and they took a very data-driven approach to any of the analysis and the recommendations they did. So it was way more thoughtful. I think at that stage, defining luxury was very kind of fluffy. And he brought real rigor to it and helped people understand it such that they could kind of position themselves as luxury and obviously command the kind of margins that luxury firms do, et cetera. So Galloway's an absolute beast. He's since gone on to be really almost like I don't want to say celebrity, but he is kind of like a business celebrity. So he keeps his course rolling, and that obviously is a feeding vehicle for, a huge component of his audience. He's also written some exceptional books. He wrote The Four, which we read during his course, but it's the hidden DNA of Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google, and just super thoughtful, Again, he's always kind of citing mental models and disclosing how he thinks about stuff. So you get really inside of his head. He doesn't just give you a point of view, he substantiates it. And the man gives zero, I'll just say it, zero fucks. Like, he will bring some of the most controversial points of view. He just doesn't care. And I think he has a chip on his shoulder in many ways. So I would highly recommend you dig it, or just to kind of bring it back. His newsletter, No Mercy, No Malice, ships on a weekly basis, and he just attacks current events. He attacks themes and trends that he's kind of observing across society. So it definitely skews business, but he touches on all kinds of stuff. So Galloway's a legend. I would definitely tap into the stuff that he's putting out there. All right. We are into the home stretch with the final four here. So, God, I had a lot of insecurity, and it's so weird in the world of SaaS, right? If you're a real estate broker on the sales side, you know what you're selling. You know how it's composed, you know the challenges, et cetera. I would say 85% of revenue growth oriented folks have no idea how the product's built, how to interpret a line of code. And I kind of live my life that way. It was like, I don't really need to know how it works. I just need to know what outcomes it provides. And then I can foot that to the value propositions and map it to the personas. And we can, there's a value exchange there, and we can build sales around that. And so coming into this game, where it was a much more risk-on environment, and I had to take ultimate accountability for the product and how it performs, how it develops over time, roadmap structuring, et cetera. I was like, all right, I need to really, I guess, attack this insecurity and round out my foundational knowledge of computer science. So I searched far and wide. And there's some different approaches to this. I could have grabbed a full stack CTO and just paid him to kind of accelerate my knowledge as quick as humanly possible. That's a very common tactic, where you kind of try to short circuit the time investment required by bringing in substantive expertise. Kind of like, instead of taking a GMAT class, you just grab a GMAT tutor and crank. But search far and wide, and CS50, Harvard, they have a few select classes that are just totally open source, free to the world, and they're intro to computer science. And I can't recall the professor, but what a legend the professor is. I've rarely seen someone as engaging, and somebody who is so thoughtful about, again, sequencing the content such that like the knowledge becomes a semantic tree. So he starts with the trunk, and you understand kind of the genesis and the evolution of computer science. So there's all the learning you can latch onto it, to the foundation that you establish over time. He's just absolutely an elite educator, frankly. But this is 22, or actually it's about 22 hours of content totally. And, you don't need to do the workshops. You don't need to do a lot of that stuff. Like, you don't necessarily need to be writing code, but you'll leave with a much more solid grasp on foundational computer science programs, so that when you're talking to an engineer, you're more articulate. When a user has an issue, you can kind of appreciate, the level of effort behind, like, just small. You can bring more empathy to the engineering function, full stop. And that should make you a more well-rounded CEO, owner, operator. And I guess on the acquisition side too, you can understand and navigate tech stacks when you're looking at deals. So regardless, this is probably 22 hours of time that you will never regret investing. I think you probably assume you'd need about 100 hours to get to the level of knowledge that this course will get you to. So in the same spirit of kind of the computer science, the engineering orientation, I guess this is Brent Sanders, but a friend of mine who helps, I guess, kind of mentor me on the CTO side. I was like, hey, I want to learn about product strategy and product management and managing engineer teams and all this stuff. And he's like, dude, shape up. So this is the crew behind Basecamp, which is a pretty successful CRM, kind of a horizontal SaaS. And they've built all kinds of software products. You can kind of look at them as a software studio, honestly. But I think it was roughly 7 years of experience or so as a crew. And he just gives you a straight up framework to manage product roadmaps. So it's framed really around like kind of shaping bets. Everything's restricted around a 6-week time box, how to, task out work, how to forecast delivery dates, how to, at what kind of level of detail do you want to shape design such that you don't kind of bias or handicap the designers that are going to pick up the work downstream. It just has a lot of really hard hitting stuff, and it's very concise. And again, this is one where you're like, cool, I've got a playbook for, managing product now, or for kind of liaising with somebody who does manage product. So again, Shape Up, it's free, and it is a very dope book. All right. So we're going to change gears big time. So, it's interesting. I have some friends that are like, I'll read fiction when I'm wealthy. And I'm not necessarily sure that I subscribe to that. I think that you want to round out your kind of content intake with stuff that stimulates different parts of your brain, because you never know where inspiration or clarity is going to come. And I think, frankly, you probably want to, give your brain a break every once in a while so that it can kind of rest. So in that spirit, the power of now, man. So I've studied spirituality for a long time, and Mickey Singer's I'm a big fan, like the Untethered Spirit, the Presence Experiment. There's a lot of stuff out there that I've studied pretty closely. And I used to think the power of now, like the first few times I heard it, I kind of found it tacky. I was like, that title sucks. And so I guess like they say, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge it by its title either. Because this dude, Eckhart Tolle, who has gone on to become, like a world-renowned spiritual guru, the whole book is just about like just staying in the now basically solves all your problems. And it's a practice, obviously, to kind of bring your consciousness into the now. And it also, kind of preaches bringing awareness to parts of your, I guess, consciousness that maybe are operating in the unconscious, and that's how you kind of work towards enlightenment. It's like, hey, you have so much of this stuff in autopilot, a lot of these beliefs, a lot of these emotions that you haven't processed. Just fixate on being present and then intentionally kind of bringing awareness to those components. And the book forever changed me. Like, this is one that I want to read on an annual basis at minimum. It is, it's a really moving, really powerful book. And I think it's important to just blend that content in on a quarterly basis, on a semi-annual basis, so that you don't just end up you can talk and relate and engage with the world in ways that are beyond SaaS and acquisition entrepreneurship. So I'll leave it at that. Outstanding. Can't recommend it enough. Lastly, this is purely falls in like the brain candy category, but we have a gentleman in Moscow, and holy shit. This one, it's one of the most well-written things I've ever engaged with. So I think, and as a function of that, like, you want to write well, read stuff that's well-written, because it kind of just naturally rubs off on you. So I've definitely noticed my writing change a little bit, and the book has given me perspective on kind of the communist revolution in Russia. So it is kind of, this is not hardcore, fiction. There is some kind of historical context to it. And it's about a dude who basically gets, stuck in confinement in like a world-renowned hotel in Russia. And it's about him kind of, I guess, mastering his circumstances. That this is kind of one of the big headlines of the book. It's like, master your circumstances such that they don't master you. So it's like, how does he stay aligned with his values and his principles and kind of navigate a totally confined, radical departure from his current existence? And after kind of being knocked off a high horse where he was an aristocrat, now to being kind of a common person at a hotel. And it's so damn well written. Like, oh my God, I find myself just reading paragraph over and over and over, just like, damn, like he brought words to that make it so much easier, or he describes something that no one's ever described to me before. And so that brings more awareness into my world, and it kind of provides the common ground to connect on a different level. So outstanding. Holy smokes. All right, y'all. So I think that's it. Club Banger 12X, hardest hitting content for me in 2023. Please light up the comments. I'd love to hear the content that really moved you in 2023. I think it's important that we share this kind of stuff. We are one tribe here. So the hope is that we socialize stuff, kind of high tides, all ships rise. So if you found something that really lit you up, that changed your perspective, that made an impact on you as an operator, as a human, as a husband, as a brother, you name it. I'm all ears. I'd love to dig in, and I'll leave it at that. Much love, y'all, for the love of the game. Cheers.